killings. He hid for over 20 years as a respectable married gentleman near Washington State. And you would say, but those are just a few. There's a reason why people who do horrific things hide under the respectability of a heterosexual marriage. It's because they become almost untouchable. If someone has a family, kids, they live in a very nice house, they couldn't have somebody buried in the cellar. They couldn't beat their wife. They couldn't touch their kids. But the reality is, people who prey on children can be a pediatric doctor, a trash collector, an insurance agent, or the U.S. president. You don't know. And being married doesn't make you any less of a killer, any less of a predator than if you go to church on Sunday or gamble on Sunday instead. Going to church doesn't make you anything. It should, but it doesn't. And just because you have a wife and kids doesn't make you decent. I happen to know of one gentleman who used a picture of his son to make women comfortable enough so they would get in his car. They didn't get out. Only one person, fortunately, escaped. We need to stop giving an air of respectability to someone just because they say they hear a God's voice, they're married, or they have white or hetero privilege. And same goes for women. Even though 93.6% are people with religious affiliations who are male, and I would say 80% of the time are white or white adjacent. Women can still be horrible predators. And if they're not predators, they're enabling, hiding, and protecting the men. We need to start arresting people who hide people they know are bad people. We need to stop worshiping marriage and relationships, children, or the nuclear family as the cornerstone of Western civilization. The cornerstone of America is morality, kindness, patriotism, and the lack of homophobia, transphobia, queerphobia, sexism, racism, colonialization. Those are American vices, but they should not be virtues. And until we consistently treat single people with as much value as married people, where we look at married people with suspicion because we know that not just because you're in a group of respectability doesn't make you respectable. I wish we lived in the world where everyone was respectable, but we don't. And you're more likely for your kids to be harmed by a godly man than by an unmarried atheist. Because very few atheists are in jail, but 2 out of 3 people in prison are religiously leaning toward Christianity. And that says a lot about religion. And if you Google how many famous criminals attended church, there's a lot of white people. And, I mean, you look up famous criminals who went to church. You will probably find, except for one, the top 9 went to church. People like Ted Bundy, Dennis Rader, Gary Ridgway, the worst of the worst, went to church. Some were deacons or elders or pastors. Any institution or environment that gives people opportunity and access with limited background check or accountability, you might as well call the church a garden because it's ripe to grow abuse. That doesn't mean you 100% of the time are going to have abuse. You usually have two scenarios. The first, which I think is the most common, you have a church that teaches abusive doctrine, sexist doctrine that really makes it easy to have abusive power dynamics.